Hello and welcome to Diversified Wealth and Retirement. I'm Sarah Peterson here with Ken Stelgis of Diversified Wealth Advisors. Good to see you today.
Good to see you. How are you today?
I'm so grateful to be back with you. I know we always have a lot of fun and we learn so much. At least I learn so much from you every time. And, you know, planning your retirement, it's not something simple, and it's something that we all need to do, and we need to do it now.
Absolutely. Definitely the right time is always now, right? If you're questioning when should I take care of retirement and start thinking about it, now is always the right time.
I know we've talked previously in other shows about everybody's situation being completely unique and personalized. What are some of the common concerns or flags that you notice, like red flags, when you're dealing with people's planning for retirement?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So most often when people come in to see us, either from one of our lunch and learns or workshops or education classes, probably 8 out of 10 people, when they're coming in, we'll ask them, hey, bring in your retirement plan. Number one red flag, 8 out of 10 of them don't have a retirement plan, right?
That's a problem.
That is definitely a big red flag for sure. So as we kind of go down that list, there are a number of different things that we talk about with that. Another one is that nothing's automated, especially in those early years. And people think, well, what exactly does that mean, nothing's automated? Well, as you're investing into your 401k or your IRA or your Roth or whatever it is, so many of us get so caught up in, okay, I've got to pay the bills and I've got to buy gas and I've got to put money for whatever away. And the last thing they think about is their retirement savings. So 401ks have made it so much simpler to automate that piece, right? Just put that money in every paycheck before you even get your paycheck. There are advantages and disadvantages to doing it pre or post-tax, but that's for a different conversation. So making that automated is another red flag we see. There are a number of others. So another one we see often is people will put everything into one investment, right? So you'll see people that maybe work somewhere and they're putting all of their money into their company's stock. That can have a huge detriment if you're thinking, hey, this company's just going to continue to do well, right? It's going to keep bringing in and keep growing and keep growing. Well, nobody ever thought Lehman Brothers would go out of business, right?
Right. Yes.
That can absolutely be a huge detriment to your retirement as you're moving down that pathway. Now all of a sudden you get to the retirement point and you've all of a sudden lost 40 or 50 or 60%, or maybe all of it because that company went entirely out of business. So that can be horribly detrimental.
You know, diversification, I think, is so key. We've talked in previous shows about, you know, kind of pulling yourself slowly away from risk as you get closer to retirement. And it seems like when we're in the accumulation stage, people are much more focused on, you know, staying in the stock market or willing to take more risk. And the stock market can be great for that. But we probably want to diversify more going into retirement.
Absolutely right. And that's one of the next big red flags we see is that people, first, you have to, especially as you move, like you said, closer to retirement, you have to be willing to begin changing from that growth or accumulation phase to that distribution phase. So a lot of times, one of those big pitfalls is people aren't meeting with their financial advisor. Right? I came in once, he set me up, and I think it's good to go, and they don't see him for 3 or 4 or 5 years. That can play havoc on your retirement plan.
What about, okay, 2020 really rocked a lot of people, right? And we've talked in previous shows about how that has made us realize there's so many things we can't control. Some things we know are going to go up. When we pretty sure taxes are going to go up, right. And we're going to see some inflation because we haven't seen that in quite a bit. And the cost of healthcare just seems to be going up and up and up. And especially given the circumstances we had of 2020, it makes sense. How can we better prepare for those rising healthcare costs?
Well, so when we talk about those rising healthcare costs, you know, a full retirement plan, really that healthcare and long-term care is a huge piece of it. And there's a couple parts to that rising healthcare costs we have to take into account, right? Not only does it cost more per service, but we're living longer, so there's going to be more of that healthcare. So that's another one of the red flags we see. People often aren't saving enough. You know, it's not uncommon when you start to say, I'm going to put back 4% a year because they're going to match 4%. We really find that's probably a pitfall. Ideally, we'd love for everybody to be putting 15% away. Wow. Now, that's a scary high number for a lot of people, right?
Yes.
But if you can be moving towards that every year, increasing those contributions, that's going to allow you to have that extra income or those extra savings and assets to be prepared for those unexpected health care costs so you can put them together as a complete plan.
You know, as I've gotten older, I've sort of reanalyzed my spending. It used to be, I got $100 today. What am I going to do with that $100?
Right.
And then as you get older, it's, I got $100. I got to pay, 40% to the government. So now I have $60.
Right.
And now you want me to, save 15% for retirement. So, oh my gosh, I got $45. And so it just takes, I think, a little bit of a change of mindset.
It really does. So one of the things that we see when we sit down with people, that may be the first time they've ever put pen to paper on exactly what their monthly budget looks like. Right? We had a client that was about 8 years from retirement come in just a week or so ago, and they were looking at, hey, I don't know that I can put anything else back for retirement. Well, when we went through their whole budget, we were actually able to find about $800 a month additional that they were spending on add to cart with Amazon, right? Or going out to eat a few extra times. So really sitting down and analyzing that budget with a financial advisor, financial planner, can make a huge difference in how much you can put back for that retirement.
It's such a big part of that puzzle. It's not just what you can make or what you can save. It's if you can manage the spending and the outflow, and there you go. We find it. And the Amazon cart thing, I think we're all guilty of that. I'm so sorry, especially in 2020.
Absolutely.
Amazon was my good friend, the Amazon delivery man. Okay, so the viewers out there who are listening, if they're thinking to themselves, okay, I have a financial advisor, I haven't spoken to him since 2018, probably a lot has changed, and that would be a red flag if you haven't. They could come to you and get a second opinion. And what can they expect when they give you a call? Yeah,
if you give us a call at 844-484-8620, you can expect to come in, meet with us, and get a comprehensive portfolio analysis. We'll work together to see what your dreams and your goals are and put together a retirement plan that makes sense for you.
The fact that you're doing this complimentary, to me, is so unbelievable. Other advisors charge $1,000 or more for this, and to get that peace of mind is absolutely priceless and relatively risk-free. All they need to do is pick up the phone, and I think they can pretty much handle that. 844-484-8620. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and talk about some of the pitfalls of retirement planning and how to avoid them.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Hello and welcome back to Diversified Wealth and Retirement. I'm Sarah Peterson here with Ken Stelgis, and we're talking about the mistakes that we make in planning retirement and how to avoid them. Because if we start early enough, we have time.
Absolutely, right. Time is on your side if you've got it. If it's not, it can be a real big enemy as your plan.
Well, one of the things we've been discussing are the benefits of utilizing a 401k, and it can be a great tool in savings during our working years. What are some of the big mistakes we make in utilizing our 401k?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first big mistakes is simply not participating in your company's 401k, right? You need to be putting money back starting at an early age for your retirement. So there are a number of folks that just never join their company's 401k, and that can really be a problem if you're not investing somewhere else.
Absolutely. Are there any other things we could be doing to maximize those benefits we get?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of benefits. So one of those benefits is making sure you're moving to at least the match inside your 401,
Okay.
right? So if your company's going to match 3 or 4%, well, it's hard to beat that 100% return on your money, so you need to be putting in that 3 or 4%. That's a really common problem that people will make or maybe not think about. Another problem we see, more and more now, companies are offering the Roth option inside their 401k. We know that putting into Roths outside of a 401k has some income limitations, but inside that 401k, if your company's offering that Roth side, it probably should be a big part of the conversation with your financial advisor to see if that makes the most sense.
And can you explain to me the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about that traditional IRA, traditional 401, whatever that may be, that means you're putting in money today. We'll say that's $100 a paycheck or $500 a paycheck, whatever it is, and you're not going to pay taxes on that amount that you put in today. Well, when we know at a minimum at age 72, when Uncle Sam forces you to start taking it back out, you're going to get taxed on all that you take out, including the growth on top of that initial investment. Now, the big difference, though, if you're putting that in on the Roth side, if you put in that $100 or $500 a paycheck, well, you're going to pay taxes on that today, but it doesn't matter if that grows to 5 times, 10 times the amount of money, you're not going to pay any taxes when it comes time to withdraw that money down the road.
So maybe intimidating for some people to pay that tax bill up front, but since our tax, rates are historically low, might be a good option for some people to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely right. If we look historically speaking, especially in the last 20 years, we're really at some of the lowest tax rates we've had. And so we don't know where they're going to go in the future. We do know at the end of 2025, they'll revert back at least to the 2017 rates, and the standard deduction is going to drop. So we know they're at least going up to there. We don't know how much higher they're going to go, but the likelihood is they're going higher.
I mean, it doesn't take a crystal ball. We're spending trillions of dollars and someone's going to have to pay for it. I just hope we can figure out how to keep it away from our kids, because I just worry about the next generation having to absorb a lot of that.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. And while we're talking about these 401k mistakes, there's a reason that most 401k companies allow that in-service rollover, right? At age 59 and a half, you can roll your 401k out to an individual IRA. And the reason they can do that often, or they allow that, is as you get closer to retirement, you need to be able to create a plan that's custom tailored to you. And so when you're investing in that 401k plan, a lot of times we'll work with clients and say, get to the match, right? But then look to create a plan that's custom tailored for you instead of continuing to put more money into those limited selections, right? And into those mutual funds with those extra fees that you can't see. So,
the fees are really a big part. Like, as we were saying before, just knowing what your fees are can be a huge part of the battle, and being able to plan for that, because you don't want to get your bill at the end and say, wait, where did all the money go that I thought I was going to get? We need to know up front, and transparency is so key with all of that. So what about debt? Because that is it's a real issue for a lot of people. We have family members who, right out of school, they graduated with a lot of debt from college. All of us accumulate debt over a lifetime, and then we're taught, going into retirement, you shouldn't have a mortgage, you should have your house paid for. What about in times like these that, mortgages are historically low and money is relatively cheap? Is all debt bad debt?
No, that's a great question, and that conversation has really changed historically throughout times. But right now, the big debt that we get concerned with when we're sitting down and talking with people is that unsecured debt, right? If you've got $10 or $20 or $40 or $50,000 of credit card debt, and you're paying 27 or 28 or higher interest rate on that, well, that's a markedly different debt to carry into retirement than a mortgage at 3.5%, right? Mm-hmm. So there are times when it may make sense to decrease your retirement contribution savings to get that debt paid off pre-moving into retirement, especially those unsecured high-interest pieces. Because we know once that debt's paid off, that's an automatic increase in your income, right? Because you're not having to pay that off every month.
We talked previously about people sort of downsizing, in retirement and looking to, simplify some, but it seems like everybody's so focused on their homes post-2020 that it's not as easy for people as it used to be, because not all the kids are leaving the house. Some are staying there. So we might have to really revisit some of our priorities.
Oh, absolutely, right? And as that's another, there are really two kind of pieces that you talked about there. One of them is these mortgage rates are extremely low. And does it make sense if you maybe took out your mortgage 10 years ago, does it make sense to look at refinancing and getting a lower rate, getting a lower monthly payment? That may make sense, but you mentioned another big piece that we're seeing far more now than we have really in years past, and that's kids staying at home longer or parents having to move back in. And when you're doing your retirement planning, those unexpected increased expenses can wreak havoc on what your retirement really looks like. So if you're just kind of, again, doing that, hey, I've got my stack of investments and that's my retirement plan, that can wreck everything that is what your travel looks like, what your dreams look like. Those expenses that really are unaccounted for can be significant.
I mean, we work so hard for so many years, sometimes 30, 40 years we're working, and we've earned the right to sort of sit back and enjoy it. And without the proper planning, seems like it'll be all that much more difficult. So I think it's imperative that if somebody out there who's listening hasn't ever had somebody reviewing these things, it really doesn't matter, I mean, who you are or what walk of life you're from. Everybody needs a plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs to plan for retirement. You know, I've said it several times, but if you fail to plan, you might as well plan to fail. And it's so important to sit down with someone that's got your best interests in mind, right? Not somebody who's the water cooler guy or the guy on the internet or people that are selling a specific product or a specific investment. Sitting down with someone that can help you feel at ease, take those barriers down, navigate what your whole situation looks like, and create a plan, and be honest with you, right? The last thing you want to do as well is walk in and somebody tell you, yeah, you're going to be great, go ahead and retire, and 5 years later, you're back in the workforce.
So what can I do to better prepare for a meeting with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody wants to have a meeting with us, we're going to have our front office staff send them an email with a list of things that we'd like them to bring in, right? Because if you come in unprepared, it's really going to be a challenge for either of us to put something together that makes sense to you. So getting everything that they send out is going to help our time be better spent together, right? So that's what your investments are, what your debt is, what your dreams and goals are, and what your minimum living expenses are every month. All those pieces are going to go in to make our time spent together much more valuable.
Those are questions I need to go home and figure out. And I'll get back to you on that.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break. The number is 844-484-8620. Give us a call. The phone lines do get really busy, but please have some patience, and we'll try to get to you. And when we get back, we're going to talk more about the pitfalls in retirement planning and how to avoid them.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go? And who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hello, welcome back to Diversified Wealth and Retirement. I'm Sarah Peterson here with Kent Stelgis, and we're talking about all the mistakes that we make in planning for retirement, because we need to be planning, and how to avoid them. The phone lines have been really busy, and we're getting some really interesting viewer questions, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right in.
That sounds great.
I think that everybody can relate to some of these questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Eric in Overland Park. My wife and I file taxes jointly. We're both approaching 50 years of age and currently have a combined $750,000 in traditional 401k money. Both of us are still working and have a taxable income of $150,000. I want to switch future contributions from my traditional 401k to a Roth 401k. We currently give $35,000 a year to our 401k, which, if I switch to Roth, will push us into the 24% tax bracket. My goal is to have some untaxed income to fade our tax burden in retirement. Is this a bad idea?
Eric, that's a great question, and I think that is absolutely a great idea. Now, that's saying this just on that individual piece, right? So the benefits you're going to get out of that are going to be exactly what you're looking for. Putting it into that Roth piece is going to allow you to have tax-free income down the road. Now, we would definitely want to have you come in, sit down and visit, and look at the rest of your picture to make sure that those unintended consequences of jumping your tax rate aren't going to have some other consequences. Sometimes we'll see, hey, I bumped my tax rate here and not think about the other impacts or effects it's going to have, like capital gains, because those change as well.
Mentally, we think making more money is better, but not in every case that's true, and
Right.
It's hard to wrap our heads around that idea. Okay, we're going to get to another question. Sheila in Leawood. I have my most money in a traditional IRA. I'm 66 years old and still working. Is it better to convert to a Roth IRA and invest? Am I able to transfer the stocks in the traditional IRA, or do I have to sell them?
Yeah, Sheila, that's a great question. So having most of your money in that traditional IRA and converting to Roth, the first part of that question, right, that's going to have some consequences. So whatever portions of that you move from the traditional to the Roth are going to be counted as ordinary income that year. That means at the end of the year, you're going to have a tax burden on whatever piece of that you move over. So the first thing to consider is, do you have the ability to pay that tax burden at the end of the year? You're in your mid-60s. So another part of that is, am I going to need that money in the next few years, right? When you pay that tax liability, you need to make sure you've got time for that money to recuperate those tax losses in there. Now, the last piece of that question is, would I have to sell my investments inside that traditional IRA? Likely not, right? It's going to depend, but most times you can just transition that directly from the IRA over to the Roth IRA, not have to sell it, take that and get a new cost basis moving over. So hopefully you don't have to, and in most cases you don't.
That's so great that you have so many options when it comes to these. It's really fantastic. It's completely different than generations past. Okay, so we have Joel in Leawood. He asked, this year I plan to maximize my contribution to my 401k, including the catch-up provision. Can I still contribute to a Roth IRA?
Well, that's a great question. So talking about the catch-up provision inside of his 401, we know a few things about him, like his age, right? We can assume he's old enough to be able to make that catch-up contribution. But making a contribution to your Roth IRA outside of your 401k plan, really there's some other things we'd have to know. There's specific income limits on when you can and can't put into that Roth outside of work, and those income limits will change if you're married or single. So I would love to say yes, absolutely, but we can't say that for certain without knowing what your income is and what the rest of the picture is. And more importantly, it's going to be knowing where you're going to put that Roth. How are you going to invest that money? Again, that's where sitting down with someone that's looking at all that for you makes the most sense.
And not Googling it on the internet,
Right.
as we've talked before. Okay, so we have Richard, and he's in Liberty, and he asks, I'm 55 years old and have been with the same company for about 15 years. I've always had a 401k and am taking advantage of the match. Now the company is offering a Roth. Should I be contributing to it as well? Are there any disadvantages?
Well, that's a great question as well, Richard. So should you be contributing to it as well? You know, there are a lot of pieces to that question. So one of the big pieces is, are they going to match your portion that you put in still into that? And some companies will take, you put in your 4% into the Roth side, they'll still match that 3% in the traditional, but there are some companies that won't match at all. So you've got to know what your plan's rules are. Are they going to allow you to put that in and still match? If not, we've really got to weigh the pros and cons of losing out on that match. Now we talk about what implications you're going to play on putting into that Roth. If you're putting in additionally, the biggest implication you're going to have is you're going to have less spendable money in your paycheck every 2 weeks.
Darn it.
Right. But if you're doing that in addition, right, that's not going to change the tax piece on that. But if you stop contributing to your traditional and divert that to the Roth side, that's going to have some implications on how your taxes are going to look, because you're no longer going to get the deduction of those pieces you put into the traditional on this year's taxes.
It is so good that you know all of this, because it can get overwhelming with all of these options. And I know people out there are just exhausted. I mean, it's been an exhausting year and just want to go to work and bring home the paycheck, know that things are paid for, and have that peace of mind. So it's so great to have a financial professional on your side explaining it all. You were going to have to wrap up soon, and we always run out of time. I hate that, but I would love for you to let the viewers out there, they're probably sitting on their sofa thinking, this is a conversation I need to start having, even though I might not want to address all these things. It's so important that we do this now. Let them know exactly what it is that you're offering.
Yeah, so if you've listened to this and you've had some questions about in-service rollovers or are my allocations set up appropriately, give us a call at 844-484-8620. We're offering a complimentary portfolio review. We'll sit down with you, help you understand exactly where you're at today, break things down, look at what you want to do, where you want to go, and create a retirement plan that makes sense to you.
That number is 844-484-8620. You're going to give Kent a call. And you know what, Kent? You have such a variety of different backgrounds. You're such a Renaissance man. But I think because of that, you are so relatable. And I can tell how much you care for what you do. And the fact that you're in this just because you do care for people and it's your way of caring. This can be a very intimidating process for a lot of people. And to be able to simplify it is a real gift. And I think that people out there who are thinking, I don't know if I am ready or if I'm not, well, the best thing you can do is come in and have a conversation. Just like you would get a second opinion from your doctor, you're going to get a second opinion from your financial advisor. And why not? Relatively no risk, right?
Absolutely. No risk other than your time.
And I think, well, hopefully you have some of that too. But all you need to do is pick up the phone, give Kent a call. He's lovely to work with, as you can tell, and he's going to look at your finances and he's going to be able to help you create that roadmap to retirement that maybe will make your golden years a little more golden. Because at the end of the day, don't we all just want to take a cruise or go to Hawaii? Or is that just me?
That might just be you.
Oh, sorry. Well, if you just want to stay put and have some money, you can do that too. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. And then next time we'll get to more of those pitfalls in planning our retirement and making them go away. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.